Hello, and welcome to another episode of For the Love of Sports. My name is Michael Rasile. This is the show where I get to talk about sports, I get to talk about business, and I get to talk about everything in between. Today, I have the incredible Thomas Sweeney. He is an account manager of membership services. There we go, at the Golden State Warriors. Thomas, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, my man. Doing good. I got a wrap for the team today, so
I love it.
so
Yeah,
I'm decked out.
you are decked out. I love that. Not messing around. Hey, man, when you're a part of one of the greatest franchises of the last decade, I think I'd rock that as much as I possibly could too. Working for him is probably
Right.
a lot of fun. So I appreciate you coming on, man. Excited to talk about Warriors. Excited to talk about how you got into the sports business universe. I think that part's very important. But the first question I have for everybody on the For the Love of Sports podcast is, why do you love sports so much?
Yeah, absolutely. First off, what I'm wearing, it's so comfortable too. Warriors.com, shop it. No.
Love it.
Yeah, no, sports. I grew up in a household of sports. My dad, he born and raised in San Francisco. Basically, he was going to school in college, and his dad was gonna come visit for graduation, and he needed a next step, and so he picked up a sports page, and in the bottom corner it says Texas Tech has a brand new sports program, and he loved the Southeast Conference at the time, so all the classic football teams down there. He heard about it, never got to witness it in person, so he went all the way down to Texas Tech, started a job where in a rec center it was a converted barn, and all it was a hoop and 3 treadmills. And since then, he latched on at Marquette University. So I was born and raised in Milwaukee, and my whole life just been playing sports. I got 2 older brothers as well, so if it wasn't formal, I was in the backyard, roughing it up. Pond hockey, hoops, soccer, all the above. So for me, it was an easy calling. It was in the family. Every single one of my brothers and my dad all have degrees in sports. So
That's awesome, man, and I love that, and
yeah,
it's cool to see. I mean, it's a family affair at that point. I think that it definitely helps, and have those conversations. I guess what was it? So many people grow up playing sports like you did, and playing pond
yep.
hockey, being outside, doing stuff. What was it about? Why did you want to work in sports, especially knowing that, hey, like it's a rough first couple of years. It's not, it's cool, but it also kind of sucks in certain situations. So I guess
Yeah,
what
people.
was it that made
Yeah,
you really want to do it?
people don't understand the time commitment. It's crazy. I like the during the pandemic this year. I obviously couldn't travel that much, and the Warriors were at the Milwaukee Bucks. So I was like, oh my god, I'm going to finally get home for Christmas. I haven't been home for 6 Christmases. I've missed probably 5 bachelor parties, like 6 weddings. So it's not easy. It's a grind of a job, but even to this day, all my friends, they work in business, insurance, and I'm like, I still don't know what they do, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can read a box score. I can talk about hoops for days. So for me, it was just doing something I love, right? The moment you forget about it being a Saturday or a Wednesday or a Sunday to Thursday is the moment you're doing something you love. So for me, season long, you're working on those days anyway. So I just love it. It's fun. I can't talk about auto parts and insurance and portfolios, but I can talk about hoops.
There we go, man. And it's a day that ends in Y, right? I mean, I don't love working on the weekend. I'm sure, there's, as you said, you missed a couple bachelor parties. Those are a blast. I don't know if you've been
Yep.
to one recently, but they're an absolute blast. So, but you have to do what you got to do, and you're in an interesting spot because, again, the time commitment, especially in the beginning of your career, is frustrating. But obviously, as you get older into your career, you're afforded a little bit more freedom and opportunity. But that time commitment's still there. You're still working on Saturdays. You're still working on Sundays. So get used to it now, guys. Just get used to it now because it's not going anywhere. As long as once you can accept that it's a day that ends in Y and you're at the Chase Center watching one of the greatest basketball players of all time and you're getting paid to do that, that's a good spot to be in.
Well, that's something to think about. Maybe we'll get into it too, but when we were that good, we made it to the finals, 5 years in a row. That's 2 extra months every single year. So it was, our summers were getting cut off. Like, it was just a grind. So good times, of course. But
of course. And I'm excited to get into it because, right, like you're working for the Warriors now. You had a couple positions before then. I'm excited to really get into the Warriors talk, but I want to see how as you said, you wanted to get into sports. So that first job to get in, I know you were a graduate student I guess, left over into San Francisco from me here on the East Coast. Yeah. I've been there once or twice. It's a beautiful place, but not getting there anytime soon, unfortunately. But there's stuff going on. But one day, so you become a graduate assistant at the University of San Francisco. you're a master's, you're getting your master's degree there, if I'm not mistaken, at the same time.
Yep.
I guess, how do you find that position? Why do you look for that position? Was there other opportunities, or was this just the right place, right time kind of thing?
Got it. So I'm gonna make it really simple. It's all about connections and who you know, right? So my dad does he's in athletics for Marquette, and so his good buddy who he grew up with was the head director of the rec center. Um, but the nice thing about it is that my whole life growing up seeing my dad work, like he works, but his lunch hours are playing hoops, playing tennis, playing pickleball, playing racquetball. I'm like, how do I get a job
Mm-hmm.
that you can still work 8 hours a day, but somehow work out for 2 to 3 hours of them, and also like eat a lunch and have fun, come home and call it a day, and get paid for it, right? So I was like, well, this is a great start. And it really was because it helped me pay for school. It's expensive out here in San Francisco, so without it, I couldn't have even lived out here. And it's a good job because it's a lot of responsibility. People that run buildings like that, the rec centers, it's a small staff. You're looking at maybe 5 to 6 people, and outside of the library, it's probably the most populated, building on campus. So constant people coming in and out. You got the intramural programs. We actually had the men's and women's soccer team located there too, because we had the field on site. So it was awesome for me. Great learning experience, managing people, also hiring people as well. The best story I have from there is Danny Glover from Angels in the Outfield and all that. He was a member at the rec, and so every time I check him in, I would just stand up and give him the wings. And so actually, he gave me a good old Angels hat. I still wear it to this day.
Nice.
Not an Angels fan, but so we got celebrities rolling through there too.
That is awesome. Not an Angels fan, but everybody should be a Mike Trout fan. So I think I'd rock that hat as well, man. Is it one of the old school ones, like the old school with the A and the halo? Yeah,
with the halo. Yep.
Very cool.
Danny Glover.
Did he sign it for you at least?
No, I didn't sign it. Checked it in.
Cool enough.
Guy.
Yep. Cool enough. Exactly. You got to meet him. Yep. And that's the cool thing, right? You meet famous people. 9 times out of 10, they're pretty chill. They're just normal people that you see on TV. So that is always pretty cool. So you get that opportunity. And as you said, it's all about connections. The more and more I'm in this industry, this universe, the more I understand it's all about connections. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, it's hard. It's much, much harder. I used to go to New York City 2-3 times a week just to meet people. Literally, that's it. I would just go there and meet people and talk to them just so I could build those connections. And it's worked, but unfortunately during the pandemic, it hasn't. So this little podcast I got going here is helping me a lot because it allows me to ask questions to someone like you. So with that, you get a little bit of responsibility, as you said. You get a nice little thing on the resume. I'm sure a couple of your teachers or a couple of the other people that were working there wouldn't mind throwing in a recommendation for you. The first, then I'm not gonna say real job, but the first professional job you get, let's call it, I think it's the easiest way to say it. You start working for the San Jose Earthquakes in soccer. I don't know much about soccer in the United States. So are they in the MLS? Are they a part of the MLS? Give me a little breakdown and I guess what that position was and what you were doing.
For sure. So San Jose Earthquakes are part of the MLS. Historically, they've had some good teams throughout the years. The times I was there, not so much. But the job was really cool. So it's called VIP experiences. And basically, it was majority a game day job with some office responsibilities. I think that was them saving some extra money. Mm-hmm. But basically, what was unique about the stadium that we had there is we had 2 rows of almost like field side seats. So like what you could compare to like courtside seats for basketball. If you ask me, I don't even think those are the best seats in soccer because you can't really, view from above. And so my job was to literally set up a barbecue and like a pregame, like food situation for all VIP clients. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was, a solid 200, 300 people every game, be a part, get there, 4 hours early, set it up, mingle with them, create that relationship. So now, I got my 200, 300 people that I know I'm dealing with. And what would lead into it was like, oh, they need tickets for the game. They have friends come in, parking passes and all that. Then throughout the game, you just cruise around the stadium, making sure everyone's enjoying themselves, making sure they're getting their free food. The servers are getting there on time. So it was a great experience to like at least, start to create like a portfolio book or like a book of business of I can handle clients, I can handle people. It's all good reviews. But I knew there was a lifeline on it. I'm like just growing up, I'm a competitive person, and we were losing a lot, so I had to go somewhere. Had to go somewhere where they're collecting a couple more W's. But it was a great start. Good organization. My boss was awesome. But doing something like that on a complete whim, I had to drive an hour and a half every day, for that gig, and through SF traffic, people now going up and down that 101 is not easy. So overall, great experience. Got exposed to the MLS side of things, kind of when it was really starting to shoot off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was
it was
what,
good.
about 6-7 years ago at this point. So it's definitely
Yeah.
gained in popularity. I think we have 2, maybe even 3 teams in LA at this point. I have no idea what's
Yeah.
going on. Like, they're just sprouting up everywhere every other year, it seems like, and the MLS is really starting to take off. Hopefully soccer figures itself out here because we have enough people. I think we could be pretty darn good at that sport. So hopefully it gets together.
Absolutely. Yeah, I played soccer collegiately too, so like
Nice.
I was a big fan, and even to this day, like I still watch Champions League and EPL and all that good stuff.
Oh yeah.
Week, so
yeah,
I get on it.
Betting a lot on Champions League. It's an absolute blast. Got my tickets for who we got. Bayern Munich. Yeah, that's an easy one though. It's kind of a joke.
Yeah,
we'll take it. I'll roll with it. So I guess with that, like,
money.
did you get to cook the food and eat it, or was it kind of just
no?
like
I wasn't part of the cooking
bit?
process. No, I mean it was funny. One of my first jobs growing up, I worked at the zoo and I worked all the cookouts, and I was the guy on the grill. So I'd be grilling next to a polar bear, but
that's
outside of that, no.
Cool.
Due to sanitation reasons and all that, we had some official cooks, but it was more so being the point person, running it and all that. It was good. I mean, at the time, San Jose didn't have their brand new stadium. I mean, they got a pretty kick-ass stadium right now, top of the art. But at the time, we were playing at Santa Clara University, and so they're making do with what they had. So people paying a premium, they wanted to take care of them any way they could. So what that was is, pop up a barbecue, get an open bar, and you're gonna have a good time.
I think who's gonna have a bad time? You get live sports, barbecue, and a couple beers. I think everybody's gonna be happy, especially in a nice day.
Yeah,
goodness, doesn't get any better than that.
What people don't know too about soccer, the great thing about it, it's a 2-hour game. There's nothing more, there's nothing less. Unless it's like a championship or something, you're there for your 90 minutes plus 15 minutes of halftime, so you're good. So, that was something nice. Like on the schedule, you could commit to things. Hoops, NFL. NHL gets a little interesting, but
yeah, it's right. Like some of these college football games, they're like 4 hours long. It's like, guys, this is unnecessary. That's the nice thing about soccer. It is nice and quick, right? 2 hours, you could play a couple games there. And so I guess with that, as you said, it was kind of on a whim that you took that job. It was something. It was in sports. It was with a team. So that obviously is a resume builder. How do you then go about going from, hey, I was cruising around shaking hands while people are eating their barbecue to, okay, now I'm going to look for a position that's, maybe I could sell tickets or more in the front office side of sports rather than those game day operations?
Yeah, I mean, super simple. You got to make money out in the Bay Area to stay afloat. It was only paying so much, right? So on top of going to school at the time, it was like, time to get real. Otherwise, graduation was staring me down the throat. I was 6 months away. A lot of people, I was probably like the majority of kids in our program didn't have full-time jobs at this point because like you're just doing so many internships or so many things to try to stay afloat out there. And so if I couldn't latch onto a job, there's real thought of maybe I have to go back to Wisconsin, maybe I have to go look for a different opportunity. But I stuck with it, and when I left to SF to come out with the to do this program, I said I'm working for the Niners or the Warriors, and so I had a buddy inside the Warriors who went to Marquette with me, and then he's like, dude, there's a job opening. He's like, you got to give me your resume. I'm like, all right, let's do it.
Deal.
Give it a try. Fire it up. It was a process, right? It took a while because the Warriors weren't good at this point, right? It was an unknown, big unknown. So I was reached out the year that before they got really good. And the rest is kind of history. I can get into it a little bit too. I don't know if you have any other questions regarding.
Yeah, I mean, that. I guess more so like with one thing that happens in sports a lot, especially those first few years, are people are, you're most likely not going to stick with an organization for too long. Now you've been very, I'm not going to say lucky. You've obviously worked very hard and moved up a little bit in terms of what you've been with the Warriors for the last couple of years, but you did see it. The first job you had, you were there for a season, essentially, then you moved on. And that's what's going to happen a lot to people that are getting in, especially working for teams. Was that as you said, you wanted to work for the Niners or the Warriors, but there was the understanding, hey, maybe I have to go back home. Maybe I have to do this. Did you kind of go in with that mindset of, once the next thing comes available, I'm going to jump to it. And if I need to keep jumping to get to the Warriors or the Niners, that's something that I'm willing to do.
Absolutely, man. I mean, a big thing for me was when I originally interviewed with the Warriors, I didn't get the job. They came down to two people and they gave it to the other person. But they called me and said, "Hey, just wait in the wings. You never know, something might happen." So it was a good 4 months before I heard back from them. In the process, I'm interviewing with Stanford Athletics. I'm interviewing with the Niners. I'm interviewing with teams outside the state. Things like that. And I was, ready to kind of give that up almost, right? Mm-hmm. And then one lucky Monday morning after a night out, after like a big NFL Sunday, I get woken up and, I hear like, "We want you." And I was like, wow. Then all kind of changed. My first week on the job was 3 games in a row. So.
Oh, there you go.
Throw it in the fire, man.
Get used to. Oh, was that that was the lockout year, right? Where they had the one, they had to have the back-to-back, right? Was that the first one?
It was right after that. So I was the year that my first year was when they won it. So.
Shoot. Okay. Yeah. Not a bad bad time to start.
No, but yeah, man, you gotta take what you can get, especially out here. We're young and naive. Like what you learn in the sports world is anything you can get. You just put your 2 years in, and then the rest will kind of pan out for itself.
I love it, man. That's the way you got to do it. And yeah, I definitely want to talk a little bit about the Warriors because one really interesting part to that story is it was down to 2 people and they said, "Hey, maybe if something comes up." I always feel like that's just bullshit, right? Like I always feel like if they're like, "It was down to me and some other person," the other person gets it, like that's it. Like I'm out, they're not going to then wait for the next sales position and say, "Okay, now we want you." That very rarely happens. Did you actually think they were ever going to call back or like, I guess, what was your mindset?
Absolutely
Obviously, like I've never heard of that happening before.
Yeah, no way. I thought I killed it too. Like I was like, oh man, like you're going through like hours and hours of interviews, and then to hear that's a gut punch, right? At the time, my uncle, he's got a merchandise stand for the Giants, San Francisco Giants. So I just stayed working the corner with him. And so just to kind of keep the money, stay afloat and all that good stuff, it was tough, man. You get down easily. Yeah. But that comes with the ticket of sports. That's the first thing we learn. Our first class is, the ups and downs of it. So, stay with it, right? If you got a dream, just follow it. It's corny as all get up, but man, I had to prove to the people at home, like I came out here for one reason. I'm going to do it. I got close. So my hope was like, all right, if not that position, maybe there's another one in the Warriors organization. I just got lucky that I guess what they told me actually made sense. And I get to the Warriors and they're like, "Yeah, there's someone that we thought was going to quit. So we thought we're going to hire 2 of you, but she didn't quit." So.
Oh shit! Oh, geez.
We'll take it.
Yeah. Well, hey, you got there and you've been pretty successful during that time. As you said, your first year there was the first year that they win the NBA Finals, which must have been absolutely incredible. And they go on that incredible run. The Splash Brothers, they were always kind of the Splash Brothers, but that year it was just absolutely bonkers what they were able to do. Yep. I'm sure they set 100 records that year as they did every year. What I guess what was your first position with the Warriors? Let's start with that. What was that first position? What were you doing?
Yeah, so account executive. So it's a similar title now just with like a little bit of a title shift, but same kind of realm of things. So it's having my 350 clients, and it's just relationship building. Not so much on the sales side where we're cold calling, making those one-off game sales. It's the sales team have gotten these clients to buy season tickets. So now they come over to us, and now we're the connection point with the team going forward. What that means is, game day, helping them with their tickets, having events for them pre, post, during. That's a happy hour, getting them on the court for courtside shoot around. We all know Steph's shoot around, right? It's become a thing, so people want to get there to see it. Locker room visits, player meet and greets, and then big December holiday events, summer events. So it's that 11 to 12 month relationship, and then actually we just started it Monday. It's called renewals. It's that 1 month segment that we get you to buy tickets for the next season, and if applicable, playoffs. So at that time, obviously playoffs were big, easy. And so that was the thing. So in order to get the chance to get playoff tickets, you had to have season tickets.
I love that, and it makes sense, right?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. No, it was funny too, man. When I first started that job, I didn't have a suit, and I didn't know like every game you had to wear a suit.
Mm-hmm.
So the suit I had was just, you know those like those pictures of like LeBron and all them with those baggy suits. Yeah, that wasn't too far off. It wasn't too far off. It's amazing how much I've evolved over the years.
It makes sense. That's what we all do after college. You're all good, man.
Yeah, but no, it was like a full on, thrust into position. But I felt good doing it because, go back to the earthquake, even the small sample size, man. But that was the start of it.
I love it, dude. I love it. And so with that in particular, like I want to talk about those first few years because I mean, they obviously they went to the finals 5 times in a row, if I'm not mistaken, 4 times in a row. What was it?
5 times.
5 times in a row. End up winning two of them.
We got
3
3.
Of them. Whatever. Yep. I don't. It's been 2. Mm-hmm. It was a little much as just a fan of sports. It was a little much, but hey, being there, it was probably I'm not gonna say the easiest job in the world, but like, what were those conversations like? Like, it must have just been. Was it just fishing and shooting fish in a barrel? I don't know what the hell that comment is.
Yeah.
That one. But like at some point, it's just like, hey, do you guys want to come watch the greatest team of all time potentially? Just run through the NBA, win the finals, and you get to cheer along with your kids. Like how easy are those sales at that point?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I mean, let's think about the market first off. So the markets can sustain this kind of activity too, mm-hmm. and with the way the prices were going, it was insane. So if you'd sell tickets, you'd make a fortune off of it and whatnot. But in my field, we more so they had the tickets, right? The problem mm-hmm. was getting them more. I mean, we'd have pre-sales that would last for under 5 minutes for mm-hmm. like a first round playoff game, and then you got to the finals, like us versus LeBron. Are you kidding me? Like you're going against the best in the world. And those tickets were, starting at 1,000, just insane. And then I almost would say because we were so good, our fans expected like more mm-hmm. out of us, right? And so it almost made it more difficult. It was almost more difficult to help people during the good years than it is the bad years, because expectations are higher, not just the players and the team, but like out of us as employees. So a lot of it, like, for me personally, I had 2 season tickets. Like every employee gets season tickets, and the toughest thing was who gets to go to the games. like you got 15, 20 people asking you to go to the Western Conference Finals versus the Spurs, or do you send your mom and dad to the finals, but your 2 best friends are in town. So it was wild. It's tough to explain, but I'd say my business card was the greatest thing I had in San Francisco during those 5 years.
Absolutely, man. I can only imagine.
I could go to any other event I wanted to, just had to, figure out a way to get them into the game.
Yep.
Obviously by selling them the tickets.
Yeah. Oh, of course. No, man. I just think it is so cool, and it's a really interesting perspective, right? As you said, it's almost more difficult when they're that good, because after a while, it's like, all right, we've been to the finals 3 years in a row. It's like, well, what do you expect this year? Well, I expect to go and win again. Like, right? It just becomes that it's almost too much. And I think you bring a really interesting perspective on that, on how it is, keeping up with those expectations is a little difficult. Now, Kevin Durant comes, they win a couple more. Then he, everybody gets hurt that last year, which was awful. Obviously, never want to see everyone get hurt. I mean, Kevin Durant with his Achilles, Klay Thompson with his ACL. Like, it just sucked, man. It's unfortunate. Obviously, Klay Thompson's out again this year, which stinks. But with that, like the run up to the new stadium, I'm curious about that, because they have the Chase Center. We're hearing Rachel Nichols talk about it on The Jump. It's like, oh, it's printing money. It's printing money. They spent $2.6 billion, and just sponsors alone, they already brought back $2 billion or whatever it is. Like, what was that process like? Because not too many people, in your position, or really in any position, get to go through, opening, rebranding, all that stuff that comes along with the new stadium, especially one of the magnitude that is the Chase Center.
Absolutely. I mean, just to kind of touch back on that Oakland time period, man, we were rock stars. Like, not even just the players, but employees too. You walk into a bar, you walk into even like a room of 10 people, and you say you work for the Warriors, and it was like, well, you're the star of the show right now. But it was incredible, right? Everybody wanted a piece of the Warriors. Like, even to go to an away game, the ticket prices were up so high. TV, they're all over the place. Like, bars would be packed here just to watch a regular season game. Me and my buddies talk about all the time, like those 5 years where it's like a joke. It's like what we were able to pull off, and like what we were able to see and be a part of. It was so fun. And what it did for us as an organization, man, we went from a team that was terrible, right? Riding the pine most of the season, being in the last five teams. And then all of a sudden you go to 5 straight finals, and it changes your franchise around. So now tickets started to get a little bit more expensive. You know, our season ticket holder list went up to 50K, over 50K. I mean, that's something like the Packers have, and I don't know about too many other teams besides that. So then when we did the whole shift to San Francisco, it was interesting. Golden State Warriors like to consider themselves the Bay team, right? So it's like tough to pull them out of one part of the Bay to go to the other. So it was tough to leave Oakland for a lot of people, I think. A lot of people saw it maybe as a money grab going to San Francisco. Maybe the whole, you know, mindset of the team and the business would be different. But, you know, I think we handled it well. And there's a lot that went on behind it too. Like, I think there's a lot of opportunity to stay in Oakland, but just didn't get worked out. You know, I love if you come to the new stadium now, they call it the Madison Square Garden of the West, but you know, way newer and a lot cooler.
Yeah, a lot more stuff going on, right? I know I remember when I was reading about the Chase Center opening up, they have that you have the outdoor area where you can like watch the game. Like there's so much shit. But unfortunately, the first year you move in there, half the team's hurt, and then the second half of the season essentially just shuts down to the pandemic. So I'm curious, like as you said, you were riding high 5 straight years. You were the rock star. You could do whatever the hell you wanted, and in one fell swoop, it all comes crashing down. Like what was that like from a season ticket perspective, right? Like all these people saying like, hey man, we can't come across the Bay. It sounds easy as someone that's never seen or been there, but it's a lot more difficult, especially with traffic in California. So what was like so many different things start happening at once that some sounded great. And then all of a sudden, all those injuries, the team is terrible. You know, Steph is then hurt and they essentially kind of just shut him down for the season. We can speculate. I'm not here to do that though. Like, what was that then like where again, you're at the highest of high for 5 straight years. And then all of a sudden it's over essentially for at least that season.
It's a reality check is what it is. I think it grounded us on a lot of levels, right? Especially me personally. I mean, you just get used. It was almost like you get used to going to finals, right? So like, oh, we're not in the finals. Like this, what a failure of a season. What a failure of a job this was this past year. You know, but you got to take a step back and take perspective, right? For a kid that just got into sports and first 5 years on a job, he's got 3 championships. People work their whole careers.
You get those rings, right?
Yeah, we get the rings. Yeah. No, 3 is nice, but it's like I'm saying, there's people that work their whole career and they can't do that, can't achieve that. So you got to take that moment to sit back and be like, okay, those 5 years were. I mean, we broke every record in the books almost, right? And then we can compare us to the Bulls run. So you got to appreciate it, but then you also got to separate it and move on, right? I think the easiest part about that year, last year when we were the worst team, we knew it right away. So it wasn't like a slow grind and Steph's playing and everyone's playing. It was just like right off the bat, we knew this was going to be tough. I think, you know, talking with my buddies, it was the basketball gods got back at us. With all the injuries, it just wasn't meant to be against Toronto. That one still bums me out because I think if we're healthy, we would have beaten them.
I think if you win game 6, you win game 7. Yeah, like I remember watching that game being like, if they win, like Steph is going to go nuclear in game 7, pull this out with a 50-point, you know, whatever. And, you know, we're calling now this is the greatest team of all time because you lose Klay Thompson and KD and you still end up winning. Like that would have been nuts.
Yeah, but from a business standpoint, what happened was, you know, as a team, prices rose for tickets. Expectations rose, and then we sold the new building as if we're a championship caliber team, right? And so we're paying the money for Steph, Klay, Dre, and you know the KDs of the world, and he didn't come over with us, which was a gut punch, but we still have a really, really good roster, right? So the expectation is there to keep it going. We're paying the money. Let's see the results. So by losing and having a bad season, it really put the omen on us as a business. What can we do to? What's the other? We've almost let the stuff on the court really help carry our business, but now it's our time to like really learn and like, can we be the ones now to help carry the business, right? So we got really creative with how we interact with our season ticket holders. You know, a lot of floor seat opportunity upgrades, a lot of one time like the players got more involved with events. People that don't know this, players, they have a cap on what they have to do. And so, players were, going over that number just to help out. So it from a business standpoint, to be on the high and the high and the low, like you've been through it all then, right? So there's definitely days with those tough conversations. There's no doubt about it. And in the process, I don't know if I mentioned this to you before, but instead of having a PSL, we have a thing called a membership. So it's the right to buy your seat, but instead of us just taking the money and keeping it, you get it back in 30 years. So what that does, so a little history with Chase Center. It's the only first ever privately financed stadium. So a lot of stadiums that are built in cities, you got to go to the taxpayers, right? You know, this money. So this is the first one that's never happened. So the thought of it, you know, is if we can get a lot of money up front, help finance the building, and then over the 30 years, we'll be able to pay everyone back. So it's an interesting situation. It's a different take on it. I think teams like the Rams instituted it as well with their new stadium. But no, it was asking for a lot of money off the bat. And so when you ask for a lot of money, you gotta make sure that they're getting their money's worth, right? And then now throw in the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, I want to stop there before we get to the pandemic, because that's completely out of everyone's control. Just like injuries are, they're out of everyone's control, but there was still things in your control at that time. As you said, you know, the players were giving back more. You had to get creative and find ways. Like, what were some of those things that, like, hey, the first 5 years, all you had to do was win. You kind of threw your hands up. It's like, you're going to buy more tickets. We all know that. Now you guys are absolutely terrible. What were some of the things that you guys had to do, you guys and girls that work there, especially in your role? What were some of the things you had to do to just kind of make people just like, hey, I know you're paying a lot of money to see like the worst team in the league right now. Here's some fun stuff we can do together.
Yeah, I think a lot of it was, you know, communication, right? So just you know, maybe that one conversation week turned into 2 to 3. Always reminding them that, you know, Steph he's healing. Yeah, he's going to heal. And that, like, the future's still bright. And man, we have amazing owners, right? So they're willing to pay the money. I think we've gone to luxury tax every single year. So there's hope there, because we know teams that struggle, and you look at their ownership, and, you know, you can start asking questions like, why are we always in this situation? We know that we're not going to be in this situation for long. So it's just reminding ourselves that this is a one-off. This has to be a one-off. I mean, I truly think if like Steph and Clay weren't hurt, you know, and even if Clay wasn't hurt this year, it'd be a completely different ball game.
100%.
Even last year, right? I think we even could have been in the top 5 discussion still. So I mean, we ended up having pregame events almost every single game, and that's a happy hour, you know, free beer, free food.
That'll get people going. Yep, let's go.
Yep. We got a little bit more interesting with our gifting strategy. Not just like we do with bobblehead sets, not just that, but more shirts, everything else. We sent everyone Under Armour sponsored Warriors masks this year that, you know, they come at a high clip. So it was just gifting more, taking care of people who really needed it, right? It's almost like they needed someone to pat their back through the situation. But it's a fine line. This is good to know from a business standpoint. It's like, you can't, just because it's a bad year, doesn't mean that you like have to throw away all your standards and all that, because now the moment, let's say, all right, we're good. So you got what you got from when we're good, but now that we're bad, we're just going to throw all this stuff at you. You can't overdo it, right? Because then they're going to have the expectation of the next year of all that stuff too, right? So it's just a matter of finding a balance and just hope. Just like, hey, this year's a wash. We got to move on.
Yeah. Hey, we'll get them next year. We'll get them next year. But of course, then, as you were saying, then we throw the pandemic into the mix. And that just ruins everything even more. Like, what have you been doing, especially with California having some pretty stringent standards, understandably, especially in the cities and everything? How did, like, there's no season tickets, like, right? There's nobody in the stadium yet. And I don't think there will be for a little while. Like, how are you going about, again, just, hey, you know, we're getting through this, guys. Like, how often can you just have that conversation with someone before they're like, Tom, man, like, God, what are we doing here?
No, my joke, my running joke is I felt like I was a counselor this year. Like,
yeah, right.
It was. I still remember, like, it's almost coming up a year now. We were all in the office, and we were supposed to play the Brooklyn Nets, and we decided that we weren't going to have fans. And then we had a meeting that morning saying, like, all right, we're staying in the office. And then 3 hours later, it's like, grab your backpack, get the hell out of here. Little did we know that was the last time we're going to see any of our clients for a whole year, let alone step foot in the building. So it was interesting. So we had 4 days left in our renewal process last year. And so we decided as an organization to finish through with it. And so by doing so, we came out very well because there's a lot of NBA teams that never even got the chance to do the renewals.
Mhm.
And so they still haven't been able to do anything for the whole year. So, we were able to still kind of stay up on our revenue numbers and whatnot. And that was big, big for our organization. I think we're the last team to have to, furlough or release anybody. So that was big. And then obviously from like the work standpoint, they're paying a lot of money, right? For something that we can't even give them, right? So it's just, again, preaching patience. It sounds simple, but that's the way it is around all the sports, right? California is interesting, so it's a little tough to see like other teams have fans, but at the same time, when I see that, I'm like, man, it's a little crazy, right? I don't know if we're ready for that. But a lot of we've gotten interesting this year. So we're the only team that has decided to do like the virtual fan, so kind of which was popular down in Disney. We're the only team that has like gone forward with something like that. I think it was realistic that we thought California would be a little slow on this, and that's fine. I mean, it's all about being safe too. So we can have 80 fans a night doing that. That's a really cool thing. We have a thing called the Coaches Corner where the coaches have bought in, and every single game day at around noon, they have a small group session like this with 30 of our season ticket holders to break down the scouting report. Yeah, it's a one-on-one conversation. So unique things like that. We have happy hours every week, trivia. We have players Q&As. So everyone's been on board as an organization, which has been great because we've needed everyone to stay afloat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you do in a business that, is entertainment, especially live entertainment, and you don't have content, right? So it's all about how can you form and generate content. And that's been the big thing.
Yeah, and you bring up the bubble, and it was the virtual fans were pretty cool, right? It was fun kind of seeing people, and I think it was like Lil Wayne or somebody, and they're trying to like high five each other or something. That was kind of cool, having some fun with it. But I guess with what's going on now, like that's only going to last for so long. Now, as you said, we're starting to see fans come back in the stadiums here. Being in New Jersey, I just turned on a Devils game last night. I was like, oh shit, they got fans there. That's kind of cool. Yep. I know the Rangers and, the Knicks and the Nets are allowing super small amounts of people, but it's still something to get back to normal. It's kind of cool to hear that crowd noise again, because we do miss that a lot. I guess what are some of the things, like, you come up with some cool ideas, and you don't know, right? It's all government based, so there's really nothing you can do about it. How is morale in the organization staying afloat? Like, how are you, just still sticking with like, all right, no, like we can, this is the rest of the year, and then maybe next year we can get back to everything. How are you guys just kind of dealing with that internally and then showing that externally, in an authentic way?
Yeah, I mean, and just to touch back with like our season ticket holders too, is we came out early. It gave them an option. If you can make the payments, great. We'll take care of you for like sticking with us through this thing. And if you needed a break or if you couldn't do it, then that's awesome. Fine too. So it's just it's a year off is what it is. We recently came out, saying that we're not going to have season tickets for the rest of the season. It just doesn't make sense. So the interesting thing is our team tried to create. There's an article about it. Testing for every fan that comes into the building. I think the only to ever come up with that. And so now the plan is, can we still utilize that? And maybe that's a thing for the future going forward, right? As a employee base, to stay pumped on it, we've been lucky enough to get to a game or two.
Nice, very cool.
So behind closed doors, we can't really promote it too much, but it's just like being able to see it in that it's wild. You walk into an 18,000 seat arena that usually is like pumped to the gills.
That's 20,000 people in it, right?
Yeah, and all it is you see everyone. The whole stadium, and there's family and friends from the players and just the basketball operations and all that stuff. So it's a unique situation, but the Warriors have done a good job keeping us afloat, right? So, we have access to, a lot of group sessions, talking, getting through this. There's ups and downs, man. The pandemic's kind of crazy. I just think it's nice that it's on TV though, right? It just gives you something to watch.
Exactly. So, yeah, I was super bored for those like 3 months, whatever it was, like half of March, April, May, and most of June. Like we got like NASCAR. I was the biggest NASCAR fan in the world for those couple weeks when it was the only thing that was on, right? And UFC, I couldn't care less about the UFC, but it's on and I need something to do, so I'm going to watch it. So it is nice to see it back. I'm grateful the players in the leagues have all been able to figure something out, because yes, it's not the safest as we're seeing. I mean, we just saw like the Raptors have to pretty much shut down everything because half their team got sick. You know, it's really unfortunate. And I've had some friends that got it, and like they're sitting on their couch playing video games. They're like, man, I got really tired doing this. And now you're seeing these athletes go out and, you know, kind of put their life's work into 18, 20 minutes. And like, I don't know how they're capable of doing it. Like I know people that can barely walk up and down stairs. So shout out to them for being willing to do something like this. So it's always nice to see. But Thomas, this was awesome, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. That's the biggest thing, right? We all want a slice of normalcy.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So if we can at least emulate it to some degree, that'd be great.
It would be great. And hopefully it slowly but surely, we're starting to see some good things apparently with the vaccines and everything. So hopefully it all works itself out. And maybe next time I'm in San Francisco, I have a buddy to call up and say, hey, man, I know you got some tickets. I just need one of them. So Thomas, this was absolutely incredible, man. I appreciate it. Where can everyone find you on the internet? LinkedIn, Twitter, wherever you're most active.
Yeah, man. LinkedIn. You got Twitter, Instagram. I can throw the handle out there real quick. I gotta find it.
That works.
I have Facebook, but I don't really comment on it. So.
I don't think anybody yet. All right, we're kind of over that shit, man. I think we're good.
All right, so it's T Sweeney _3. Hit me up. Let me know.
Love it. I'll put that in the show notes for everyone too.
I love this, man. I used to do a radio show myself, 2 Scoops with Tom. So 2 hours of greatness.
I love it.
I love all this stuff. So I was happy to be on the show, man. You run a great program here. So pumped to do this. If you ever need me down the road, you let me know.
Hey, man, when the Warriors make it to the playoffs, I think they're going to make it to the playoffs. I think Steph's going to win MVP. So I wish Clay was there because I made this like weird full circle on the Warriors. Like it was really cool when they first showed up and then they got KD. You guys got KD and I was like totally against it. So Empire, villains, the whole thing. And then KD leaves and I was like, wait, now it'd be kind of cool if they got really good again and won. And obviously everyone gets hurt. So I'm 100% back on board. One thing I will say, it's the most beautiful brand of basketball. And that's what I love about it most. It's not even close, man. It is not even close, but that whole KD thing, that I wasn't a huge fan of those 3
Hey, man, being on the dark side sometimes is fun.
It's cool.
Give it a try.
Yeah, I'm a Duke basketball fan, so like we're getting crapped on all here this year, which, hey, I'm cool with it. It happens. It's, the 3 titles that I've seen in my lifetime kind of make up for it, so I'm not too angry about it. But no, Thomas, this has been fantastic, man. Really appreciate it. Appreciate your insight on the industry and what you've been doing, and excited to have you on. Hopefully have you on again soon, man. Thanks so much.
Absolutely, man. You have a good one, Michael.
Bye, everybody.